So hello, Texicurians are here today with the king of cowboy cooking, George Bokorney.
Good to have you here. It's a good morning. We had frontal passage about 6:15. The tom turkey's been calling from the roost.
All right, well that's a good way to start the day. So George is letting us come into kind of have a little peek into the dinner that he's preparing for. There's some missionaries, or they're coming to be trained as missionaries. We're in New Braunfels, and they are from other states. And so he's going to give them for dinner tonight a treat and a little taste of Texas cowboy cooking. So George, tell me a little bit about what you're going to do here.
Well, welcome to my kitchen. This is a tailgate of a pickup truck, and it's sort of the portable workbench for all things ranch. So it's early in the morning, sun's not even up yet, but we got the fire lit about an hour ago. It's burned down just about right. Today we're going to be cooking a 15-pound shoulder clod. We're going to cook it long and low heat and all day long. And by serving time this evening around 6 o'clock, it's going to just be eat with your fork. As a restaurant in Austin says, you don't need no teeth to eat this beef. It's really, really good stuff.
That sounds tender to me.
So we're going to season it. I've got a cookbook that I first saw when I was at your place from the Perini Ranch. They have a recipe cookbook. Well, there's thyme, oregano, salt, pepper, chili powder, a bunch of other good stuff. And it just, you rub it on the meat and then throw the meat on the grill. So I'm just gonna apply this. So basically you just wrap it all around the meat. Oh! The smoke will give most of the flavor to the meat, but this really brings out the rest of it. It's just to highlight flavors. So that guy is done, and here's the pit. We're gonna fire it up.
And tell us about the placement on your pit. How did you decide where you're gonna put it? I see your fire is over here.
Yeah, fire's that way. The heat will travel through this cooking chamber and up the stack.
There you go. Okay. Okay, now we're in George and Cindy's kitchen, and there's one other thing that has to cook all day long for tonight's meal. Tell us about that, George. What are you getting ready to do? I see the big pot here.
Big bean pot there, big Dutch oven. As I said earlier, the cold front blew through, so we got 30+ mile-an-hour winds blowing out there right now. And if you've been keeping up with the headlines, Texas is burning because it's such a drought. So we're going to do our responsible thing. We're going to cook the beans inside instead of over a campfire. So I got my bean pot here. I'm going to, first off, you're going to fill it full of beans and rinse them. I don't usually find rocks in beans, but old timers used to do that. My mama did it that way. So we rinse them and we just look for rocks.
And you know, George, I like that you talk about that your mama did it that way, because that's one of the things we love to do at Texicurian is how cooking is passed down through the generations, and that's really how our culture is passed down. It's how our history is passed down in many ways through the kitchen. So thanks for bringing up your mom in this. Oh,
Mom would be proud to be here, and she would do a good job. So I'm just going to drain this off. Other folks have different ways of doing it. Some folks cook, soak them all night, pre-boil them, let them sit. I just cook them. Basically, I just about half fill the pot with beans, cover them with about 2 inches of water. Then during the day, I'll check on them and add water as needed, but sometimes I do it just right. What you want when it's all said and done is beans that are kind of in a creamy gravy. You don't want them too watery, you don't want them to boil dry.
So you put the beans at the bottom, and about how much water are you covering them? Say a couple of inches, they'll be covered?
Yeah, in this pot, you gotta leave room for them to boil and don't want them to boil over. It's about half beans and another half again as much water. We'll go ahead and put a little seasoning in there just because we can. And salt pork, this is just salt pork. Just gives a little meat texture to it, a little flavor, and in goes the delicious salt pork. But I also need some garlic in there and some salt and pepper and a little chili powder. My wife likes this fancy pink sea salt. It's good enough to start with. And some more black pepper just because it's so good. I have some special seasoning, Chimayo chili powder. It only grows in the Chimayo Valley in New Mexico, and I use it sparingly. If you get pure Chimayo powder, that's what you're really wanting. Cover it up because it boils faster that way. So that'll come to a boil, and the magic will happen throughout the day.
Okay, George, so the meat's on the grill and are on the smoker, and the beans are in the pot, and they're all cooking, and we're just gonna let it roll all day today and come back at the end of the day and visit you and see what we got.
So I'll do the work and you come back and eat.
I love it.
Perfect.
Okay, so it's afternoon and we are back here at the Bokorney Ranch, and we're getting ready to pull this big slab of meat off of the grill and see what it looks like.
You know, last time you were here it was 61 degrees and windy, and it's still windy, and now it's about 90 degrees, so it must be Texas.
Must be Texas.
So we've been smoking slow and steady, about 200, 225 degrees all day long.
Ooh, it smells good.
And we have wrapped the meat in foil so that it'll kind of, in effect, steam cook it the rest of the way. We got plenty of smoke flavor on it. And now we're just going to try not to spill too much of our juice out.
The juices are flowing out of that piece of meat.
It's a good juicy piece of meat, and here we go. So we're ready to take it in, let it rest, and then we'll slice it and serve our guests in about 10 minutes.
Woohoo! Okay, so we're back in the kitchen at the Bokorneys, and George is getting ready to unveil the beans that have been cooking all day. I can tell you the aroma is amazing.
Check them out. Those are like perfection.
Beautiful, and they're still bubbling. And tell me what you're going to do with your meat now.
Well, we're gonna unwrap it from the foil. We're gonna let it rest for a little bit. As they say, like a good steak. We'll start slicing it in about 10-15 minutes or so.
Here's the unveiling of the meat, what we've been waiting all day for.
Hot and steamy, don't know if you can see that, but it is
beautiful.
Gorgeous piece of meat.
Gorgeous piece of meat. George, thank you so much for doing this today. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
I have a little surprise for you. You are now
For
a
me?
Texicurian.
Well, I'm proud and honored to wear it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Every day's Christmas around here. Well, what do I love about being Texan? Just tonight kind of is part of it, a big part of that. Just the way those folks that came out tonight and enjoyed a delicious meal and the hospitality, and you just hear the laughing and the joy and the backslapping and just the appreciation for that meal and for the beauty of Texas, sitting out here in a spring evening as it cooled down, and just a glorious place to live, to raise family. I just can't imagine wanting to live anywhere else. What makes Texas special? Well, there's a lot of ways to answer that, and a lot of them seem like a pretty typical Texan to answer it, but we are unique. We are a state that used to be an independent nation. We were settled. We were just pioneers that came here and carved a new life for themselves. Just the people, the friendliness, the pride of living here. It just all rolls up into one big, I sure am glad to be a Texan.